Hey, welcome back. This is installing a Nortel Norstar 0x32 part 2. So there was a part 1 video before this. So if you want to go see that one before you watch this one, you can do that now. Okay, so I've actually jumped ahead since we left off with part 1, but I'm going to back up in a second and show you how I got to this point. What I did was, remember I've got my 3 Amphenol connectors over here, and the first Amphenol connector is the wiring for ports 001 through 024. Now, what does that mean in layman's terms? That means that that's got the wiring connections for the first 24 stations. So if you just took the default, it would be like 221, 222, you know, all the way up through 240, whatever, 221 plus 224 ports. Okay, so like I said, I did jump into that right now so you can see how I got to this point. Then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about some of the technical stuff going on here. Okay? Hi, it's Steve. I'm going to be terminating a 25 pair cable, that's this thick gray cable here, onto a 110 punch down tool. And actually I have to take off my wedding band because technically you shouldn't be wearing jewelry when you're working with low voltage electrical wiring. Anyway, so what's going to happen is this 110 block has got 12 different rows on it, and each one of these holds a 25 pair. And after I've opened the 25 pair, laid it out across the pins, I'll be coming back with a, I believe they call it a C5 chip, which is just kind of like a little, it's like a little miniature 110 punch down that's got like spikes in the back, which will go down on top of the wires that I've fanned out already here. And then once that's in place, I can punch down new things on here to make the connection between what goes in the front to what's connected in the back. So on the back, I'll have the standard 25 pair color code: blue, orange, green, brown, slate, you know, red, blue, orange, green, brown, slate, etc. And then these will all go on top. It'll actually take 5 of these, because each one of these is 5, so 5 of these. And once that's all done, this will be a 110 block ready for me to terminate either jumper wires or station cabling onto here. Okay, so before I begin with that, what I need to do is get my 25 pair dressed to where I want it, and then I'm going to take and cut into it somewhere further up. I don't want to cut into it here. I want to cut up to maybe about 2 feet out and strip back the jacket, okay, which will then expose the what I call dental floss inside. Dental floss is this little white, let me pull it off for you so you can see it. It's this white string inside the 25 pair. It's right next to the jacket, and what happens is if you cut like a little nick like that, and you take the dental floss or the string and lay it right in the nick, as you begin to pull, it will easily separate the jacket in half. Okay? The reason we want to do that is because we don't want to be using sharp objects against the cable sheath near the areas of the wire where we're going to want to use. Whereas if this is where I wanted it to end and I did one of these stripping numbers here, I run a very good risk of nicking the wires inside, and that's very bad. It's bad for 2 reasons. 1, because they can short, and 2, because even the slightest nick in one of these little copper wires on the inside creates a weakness and gives it a propensity to break right at that spot. Okay, so the proper way to do it is to go further up the cable, strip back the jacket, find the dental floss, make a nick, pull the dental floss back to about where you're going to want the jacket to end. Then what you do, very carefully, pull the jacket back. In fact, let me move you a little closer here so you can see better. Okay. Peel the jacket back a little bit. Be careful not to get any of these wires clipped by your scissors, and make a small nick in the jacket, or maybe more than one, and you should be able to just kind of peel that jacket off around in a circular fashion so that the jacket is removed completely. Okay? And then you can cut off whatever excess dental floss you don't need. This one has not only dental floss strip wire in it, but it's also got this other little dental floss that's wrapped around in a diagonal motion. I think that's just to indicate that that's the first the first pair, or it gives the cable some strength. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide I'm going to sort all my cables out, you know, white, blue, orange, green, brown, slate, red, blue, orange, green, brown, slate, etc., and fan them out across the top of here, and then I'm going to terminate those. So I'm going to stop the camera right now. I'm going to do that, and I'll come back and I'll show you that when it's done. And we're back just for a second. I wanted to show you, I changed my mind about something. Originally, I had the 25 pair coming up over here on the far end of the block. I decided, just kind of for my own personal preference, to put it in the center. Just because I like my cables to fan evenly, you know, from left to right. So my blue will be my blue white will be my longest one on this edge, and then of course my violet slate will be my longest one on this edge. The other thing I did too is these have got little holes in the center, so I put a wire tie through there and wrapped around the collar or the very end of the 25 pair jacket to give a little bit of tension there. And I do that so that this thing doesn't wiggle around a lot while I'm trying to fan out my wires. So what I'm doing now is, like I said, I'm sorting them by tracer group. So right now I'm doing my whites, my white blue, my white orange, my white green, and then I'll go all the way across. And then when I'm all done, I'll do one more visual inspection to make sure that I haven't got a tip ring reversal or you know, a pair out of order. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be coming back and punching these down with the 110 block. So we'll come back and see that in a minute. So here's what the finished product looks like right before I begin terminating. It's important to do this first, because if you just start laying things out and terminating them as you go, you have no point of recourse if you make a mistake, unless you've left a lot of slack in your 25 pair, in which case maybe you could, you know, pull up some more slack and redo the whole thing. The best practice is to lay them all out first and then double check them visually one more time before you start using your 110 punching tool on this. And I just realized that if this color code is not making any sense to you, then it means that I presumed a step, and that is the knowledge of the telecom color code. I've actually got a separate video for that. There'll be a link in the description to that. You need to understand what this color code is: the white, blue, the white, orange, white, green, and then the red, blue, red, orange, red, green, black, yellow, violet, etc. So you need to go know that color code before you lay these out. All right, so now I'm going to do my visual inspection, and then I'm going to start terminating this row. Now I'm going to begin terminating. Now, here's what we're really doing. This row is full of a bunch of little bitty slots. There's 50 slots in here for me to lay those cables into. But they're not the same kind of 110 punch like the little C5 chip is, because in the C5 chip there's actually a metal, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but there's like a metal teeth in the back that when we do the punching task, what it's doing is it's pushing the wire into those teeth. In these, there are no teeth, but the main reason we're doing this is we're seating the wire fully in there against the back. There's some friction there or some interference that holds it in place. The second thing we're doing is we're cutting the top of the wire to get rid of all this mess on the top here. So I've already done my visual inspection, so now I'm going to start cutting. And they may not fall off right away. A little bit of it depends on how new your cutting blade is, or the angle at which you hit it. It's like I just did the orange, it fell off right away. Some of these are really just perforated, and all I need is just a little wiggle, and they'll fall off. Okay. So I'm going to go through this whole row so that when I'm done, it'll all be flat across the top. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my C5 chips in place. Okay, so you saw how I did the punch downs. Now there's more to go, and then what's also going to happen is I'm going to add additional modules, so there'll be more and more of these 25 pair tails coming over here getting punched down. One thing I did that is different from the way a lot of installers that install these units do is I took the 25 pairs and I went down through the bottom and came underneath the bottom before I came up. A lot of the installations I've seen, they take all the 25 pairs and they run them through this little tray here. The reason I don't like that is because this gets kind of crowded in here. Well, these little slots right here in the bottom, in this bottom tray, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little vertical slots. Those are where you put the little expansion spools. I'll show you those when we do an expansion module. And if this is all full of wires, then that's going to be a problem. So I'm deliberately leaving that space clear for that reason. All right. So when you've got the first one down, what you end up with is you know, 50 individual wires or 25 pairs of wires. Each pair of wire, so every group of 2 wires represents 1 station. And this kind of gets into some fairly complex telephony concepts here, but I'm trying to kind of keep this simple for those who are kind of do-it-yourselfers, which is what I've always tried to cater to, was people who don't come from a telecom background but are trying to manage or work on stuff like this. The first 2 wires would be the 2 wires that you would run to a jack for the first station, or 221. The next 2 wires would be 222, etc. The way that, now I'm on a lab, so my phones are right here. I don't have any wiring going out to different parts. I mean, actually I do, but for the sake of this conversation, I've got my phones right here. So what I've done is I've made these little tails that have got special little connectors which just actually sit right on top of those pairs like that. If you are going to be making connections to other wiring to go out to offices, then you're going to want to take a pair of wires, put it across the 2 pairs, the 1 pair that you want to connect. So say, for instance, if we were doing the 3rd station, 223, we would lay across this little green pair here, with the white-green pair, and we would punch that down, and then we would take those 2 little wires, or that pair of wires, and we'd run it over to some other block, probably a 66 block, and we would punch that down on the pair that's going to go out to the phone. Now, again, trying to keep it simple. I've got a separate video that talks about wiring a jack. Okay, so I'm not going to go into wiring a jack out at the far end, but just know that these pairs, these 20, well, it's 25 pair here, but we're only using 24. Represent the first 24 phones. Okay. Now, if I do the next one, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to take another 25 pair, a female, and of course these are male. And just in case you're wondering how this works, so this is an amphenol connector, right? Well, the center of it is hollow or indented, so therefore it's a female. And then these matching connectors in here, they stick out, so they're male. Anyway, so I'm going to take another one and connect it. In fact, actually I'm going to run up through here first to make it a little easier. Put that there. Okay, like I said in the last video, there's these little tabs with a screw on them that you can take and flip up. They're designed to secure the 25 pair in place so that it doesn't wiggle out on you. So tighten that down. Doesn't have to be super tight. Just really just hand tight is fine. Okay. Take the other end of my 25 pair, and I've been doing my wire management with a couple of little screw-on fasteners, and then I put Velcro on them, and then I use the Velcro to... I mean, if you're doing something for permanent, you probably don't need Velcro, but because I'm running a lab and I change things up so much, I like to use Velcro. Okay, so I've strung this cable, you know, up to where I need it. I'm going to do the same thing I just did in that earlier video where, you know, I cut open it, and I fan it out, and I punch it down. And now what that's going to be is ports number 25 through 32, but there's also going to be some other spots on this row of 25 pair that do some other things, like for instance music on hold and paging, and then with the paging there's also what they call a contact closure. A contact closure is when you page through the phones and you send that to an amplifier, the contact closure is like a signal to the paging amplifier to mute the music or to turn on the amplifier. It's like a it's basically just an off and on thing is all it is. And because the 0x32 does not generate, you know, energy to go over loudspeakers by itself. It just generates like a little signal, like a headphone signal, like the kind of like a line voltage. And so the contact closure works in conjunction with the paging to tell the paging either to mute the music so that the voice can come over, or sometimes the contact closure is needed to turn on the amplifier so that it's ready to receive the voice information or voice signal that's going to come through to go over the speakers. Okay. Now, I won't talk about the individual pairs, what I'm going to do is put a link in the description which links you to a page on my website which has the individual pairs and what the function is for music on hold, paging, and contact closure. Okay, so go look for that. Okay, I'm going to do one more 25 pair, and what that's going to do is I'm going to fan that out here on the third row, and then what that's going to be is my telephone lines or my trunks, and that's assuming that we're using copper trunks and not a T1. And again, I'm going to just refer you back to a page on my website which shows how the lines go. The rookie mistake people make with 0x32 is they think, well, that's easy. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, it's not. The way it works is it's 1 and 2, and then it skips 2 pair, and then it's 3 and 4, and then it skips 2 pair, and then here's the next gotcha. The next line is not 5 and 6. The next line is actually 25 and 26. Okay, and then it skips 2 pair, and then it's 27 and 28. So you need to go look at the chart, okay? If you're going to be doing the line wiring beyond the first 2 lines. Okay? All right, let's get this all put together, get some lines connected to it, and then we'll come back.
This is that document I was telling you about. This is in the Norstar MICS 4.0 installer document, and it might be on page 163. It really just depends on what version of the document you get. But what you can see here is that, for instance, on the first 2, on the first 2 wires of the first pair would be port 101, and that would be station 21 or 221 or 2221. This really just is dependent on how many digits your dialing plan setup is. When you first start your system, you can choose to either have 2-digit stations, 3-digit stations, 4-digit stations, etc. And so the default is 21, and the next one 22, 23, etc. And it's even got the pair color. So remember when I was punching down that long row of the wires and I talked about the pairs, the white-blue pair, the white-orange pair, it shows you here. And so this page I'm on right now is the first Amphenol connector, was the top connector that I fanned out onto the 110 block. And then if I go down a little bit, whoops, moved a little too fast there. If I go down to the next one, let's see. So here it starts at port 125. So this is the second Amphenol connector. Okay, so I've used up the first one all the way to the end, which ended on port 124. Now I'm moving to the next set of 25 pair that I fanned out, and you can see that that's going to be with station 45 and then 46 and 47. Now this second connector though also has some connections that are not just for stations. It's got the connections for paging, so that when you want to do the feature 6.3 paging command, this is the connection where the energy would come out, or the signal would come out to go to an external amplifier. There's music on hold, or background music, which is essentially the same source. You can't have 2 separate music sources. So this is where you would connect the music. Like for instance, if you had a CD player, you could take the little wire that plugs into the headphone jack, and you could just get a cheap pair of headphones, cut off the earpieces and expose the wire, and you could take the positive and the negative of that wire and punch them down on these pins right here, the yellow orange and the orange yellow, and that would be the music input. Let's see, also there's the make comment, or the contact closure. I was telling you earlier about that being integrated with PA systems, and I actually was kind of wrong about that. It's more used, it's basically, it's an open or a close, and so it's more used with external ringers. So if you want to have an external ringer assigned to a station or to a line, then when you set that to yes in programming, then when that phone rings, it closes the contact closure, which sends a signal to electronic bell to make a ring noise. Alright, and then moving down to the third connector, or the third amphenol connector, the third 25 pair that we fanned out and punched down. These would be your loop start lines. And remember I said this was a little tricky. The first one and the second one, or the first pair and the second pair, are line 1 and line 2. And then you skip 2 pair. Okay, then you've got line 3 and line 4, and then you skip 2 pair. And then it doesn't go to 5 and 6, it goes to 25 and then 26. Skips 2 more, 27 and 28. And then after that, to get more lines, we have to add expansion modules, which we'll eventually do in some later videos. Also, there's an emergency telephone connector. Actually, there's 2 of them. What that is that if the phone system were to lose power, it connects an analog telephone punched down on those pair to the line 1 and the line 2 of the phone system, so that if all the power was lost, you could still make an external call using an analog telephone. Okay?
Okay, I hope you're still with me. I know this has been long, but I've had a lot of my viewers complain that I kind of skip over details, so I've really been trying to spend time to explain the whole, the way we lay out the wire and punch it down, etc. So now I've got so I actually already did the top row with the C5 chips, but I'm going to show you what it's like when I do one. So here's one of these C5 chips, okay, with the little cutting blade thingies in the back. I put it down on top of my wires that I've already, remember, I already terminated these. Now I'm coming back on top of it, and I'm putting one of these C5 chips on top, and I'm going to punch down. Even though there's no wire on the front of this, the act of punching is going to make it push down into those wires behind it. In a perfect world, I would have what's known as a like a 5-pair punch. It looks like a hammer that it's like this, and you hit it with a hammer, and it's actually got like a fat front on it that goes into all 5 of those at the same time. I don't have that, so what I have to do is just work with my 110. So what I'm going to do is just punch down a little bit on one side, punch down a little bit on the other side, kind of go back and forth, and what will happen is after about 4 or 5 punches, you'll notice that it's not moving anymore, and you can look underneath and you can see that it's flush up against the back, which means now it's perforated all those wires in the back. Okay, I'll do one more, and then I'll talk about what we're going to do next here. Start a little bit on one side, move over to the other side, go back to the first side. Like I said, you'll get the feel for it when it stops moving around after you've punched on it about a few times. Okay, so why have I been doing this? Well, the reason is because in order to start making the connections, you need to have at least the 3 amphenols that we talked about earlier terminated. The first one, which is the first 24 stations. The second one, which is going to have the remaining 8 stations of the total of 32. And then there's also going to be a few little spots in here where you connect paging, contact closure, and music on hold. And then the last one, which I haven't done yet, is for the POTS lines or the telephone lines that you'll be connecting to it. So we got to get these connected. It doesn't matter if you use 110, you can just as well use a 66 block. And I've actually got a link that shows you how to terminate this same stuff on a 66 block. And once you get that done, then we can start making cross connects, and we can start doing some programming. So I'm going to wrap up part 2 now, and then when we come back with part 3, we're actually going to make connections from here over to our station wiring, wires that go out to the telephones, and then we'll start doing some programming. Okay? Thanks for watching.